All right, welcome back. In this chapter, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and discuss how we can create forms to gather some user feedback from users that could be internally, they could be external users, perhaps customers. And in the case of Livingston Hotels and Resorts, we want to make sure that we can learn from our users to provide them the best experience possible. Okay. Now, to do this in Liferay, if you've come from an old version, you may have heard of dynamic data lists. In 7.1, our focus is going to be on the forms asset. So this was a new asset that was introduced in 7.0 and refined for 7.1. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the information about our forms. Okay, all right, so the forms asset allows us to essentially digitalize any of our real-life forms that we would need to have filled out. So those could be feedback forms, those could be things like resumes, or anything else you need in your own business context. Okay. All right, so just like any of the other assets, you can find the forms in the content section of site administration. And when we go there, we have a forms builder application that gives us a number of fields that we can use to create the perfect form for whatever it is we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so this can be things like paragraphs, text fields. You can have a list where users can select something, a single selection, date box, multiple selection, grids, etc., etc. So these are things that we have seen actually through some of our other form builder type scenarios, like our document types as well as our web content structures. But this is going to give us a more robust form builder to be able to make sure that we have all of the fields set up properly. We can have more than one page, and we can also even set up some conditionals for our users as well. So for example, if they selected this option, we can do a conditional that opens up new options that they may not see otherwise. And similar to what we saw with our document types where we had those metadata sets, forms can have what are called element sets. And the concept is very similar here. What it allows us to do is to essentially set up a number of fields and have those configured. Okay, we can have those elements in their own set, and we can use those across different forms. So for example, what we're going to do for Livingston Hotels and Resorts is we're going to create some feedback forms. We want to both get feedback from our internal users, so our employees, to make sure that they're having a good experience while working on the Livingston platform, and also, of course, our customers who are actually going to the Livingston Hotels and Resorts. We want to get some feedback from them as well to make sure that they're having the best experience possible. All right, so when you're using the form builder to create new forms, like I mentioned earlier, there are some advanced rules that you can set as well. So one of them that I mentioned is the conditional. So you can basically show different kinds of fields based on some answer that a user may have given earlier in filling out their form. Okay. You can also set up some other rules as well that allow you to do things like is equal to, is not equal to, contains, does not contain, is empty, and then basically set some rules based on those different things there. So it allows you to do something based on some information about how the user is filling out the form. And then, of course, you can also add a success page to the end of the form as well, which is new to Liferay 7.1. Okay. All right. Now, when you have completed your forms, you can, of course, display the forms to the users using the Forms widget. Okay, so we'll be able to do this for Livingston as well. And when the users fill out the form, we can basically go back to the form section of site administration and we can analyze the information. So we can take a look at how they filled out, and we can use some other options to do some analytics as well. And we'll talk about that in the next video. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do here is, like I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and create our forms for Livingston. Again, just to recap what I said, we're going to go ahead and create some feedback forms so that we can get information from all of the kinds of users using the platform, whether they're internal or external, and make sure that we can provide to them the best experience possible by analyzing the answers, analyzing that data, and looking toward the future and seeing how we can do even better than we already are. Okay? So let's go ahead and dive right in. So I'm going to swap over to my site here. Okay, I am here where we left off in the last set of videos in Livingston Life. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make my first form in the global site. Okay, like we've mentioned before, the global site is a really great option for you if you want to use something across the board. Okay, in our case, for this Livingston example, while something like an intranet form may make the most sense on the Livingston loop, since that is our intranet, something like a just general user feedback form for those who are customers would make the most sense as global in our case, because at the end of the day, we'll probably be using multiple sites for each of our different hotels and resorts, just like we've seen with the Bali and Barcelona resort sites. Okay, so making this global would allow all of the administrators on those different sites to present that form to their users who are interested in that particular location. So let's go ahead and use the site selector here to go to the global site and create our new form. Okay, so click on the, if you're not already logged in, make sure you're logged in first. Okay, first things first, of course, make sure you're logged in and open up the menu. Okay, click on that site selector in the site administration panel. All right, go ahead and click on my sites and global. Okay. All right, good to go. Let's go ahead and in the global site, open up content and forms. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and click on the add button here to add a new form. All right, and we will now see our new form editor. Okay, so let's start by clicking on untitled form here and typing satisfaction survey. Okay, and you guys may notice here there is the add translation. So again, you can add those translations just like we talked about in the previous videos to a number of these resources anytime you see either the flag or an option to add translation here. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the form builder. Go ahead and open up that add menu there. Okay, this will show us all of the elements that we can use and if we have any element sets available for us to use as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and find the single selection here. All right, it'll be in the middle of the basic elements list, and we can go ahead and drop that to our form, and it will immediately show us our options that we can use to configure this particular field. Okay, since this is a single selection field, this is going to be where we can provide a number of options and the user can only choose one. Okay, all right, so for the label, let's go ahead and type in a question here. It's going to be, what is the overall opinion of Livingston Hotels and Resorts? Okay, so go ahead and type that. What is your overall opinion of Livingston Hotels and Resorts? Okay. All right, for the help text here, go ahead and type in, choose the option closest to what you think. All right, and for our options here, we can go ahead and add in a number of options. So we're just gonna go from very poor to very good with everything in between. Okay, so very poor. You can just tab down to the next option, poor. Go down to the next option, neutral. Go to the next one, good. And lastly, we have very good. Okay. All right, so this gives us our options for our field. We don't need to click save. We can just simply exit out of this. And we now have our first section here that users can choose from. Okay. Go ahead and open up the add menu again so that we see our elements. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and choose the multiple selection underneath the single selection that we just added. So go ahead and drag that underneath the single selection. You should see this blue bar here. Okay. All right, and for this one, it's going to be a little bit similar, okay, but we'll allow them to add multiple options. So we'll do something like, what do you associate with Livingston Hotels and Resorts? Okay, this will be a bit of a leading question, I suppose, but we can do choose any number of options. All right, if we want to, you see here, we can show it as a switcher, or we can show it as just a normal checkbox. Okay, so for the first option, we can do luxury. Okay, for the next one, we can do good value. We can do exciting, and we can do comfortable. Okay, hopefully they check all of them, but this will give them the option to check some or none. Okay, and again, we can do things like set it as a switcher, okay, or we can make it a required field. All right, so I'm going to choose show as switcher just for kicks. And we can go ahead and either X out of this, or we can click on this little back button here to get back to our fields as well. Okay. All right, underneath our new multiple selection here, we can go ahead and drag a text field. So find the text field in the elements, bring it down underneath our multiple selection field. Okay. And this is going to be for essentially some additional comments. So we can do something like, is there anything specifically that we can be doing better? Okay. And then down here, for the help text, we can add something if we'd like. We don't have to. What's most important is that we change this from a single line to multiple lines. And you'll see in the editor that it's going to go from a single text box to a larger text box. Okay, so this gives them the opportunity to write whatever they'd like if they have a lot of feedback. Okay. So let's go ahead and close the bar this time. Okay. And we want to go ahead and add a success page for our survey. So we can go ahead and click on options here in the form. And you'll see there's an option that says add success page. Okay, so go ahead and click on that. All right, for the title, we'll go ahead and just make it nice and simple, success. Okay. And then for the content here, we can do something like your feedback is highly valued. Thank you for filling out this form. Okay. All right, and nice and simple, we can go ahead and publish the form. So go ahead and click Publish Form. Okay. Now you'll see Save Form. This is sort of like a draft option, and you can actually unpublish forms as well. Okay, so you could put it up for a short period of time and pull it off by unpublishing it if you'd like as well. So this gives us our basic satisfaction survey that we can use to get some information from our users. We can, of course, unpublish this, refine it, add some more fields. We can go ahead and push it back out later if we'd like, but this gives us a good starting point. Okay. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at creating some element sets as well as our second form to use for our internal purposes. Okay. So let's go ahead and begin. Okay, so let's go ahead and click back here where we have new form so we can see our satisfaction survey. And we're going to go ahead and click on element sets. Okay. So in the element sets option, again, like I said, the concept here is similar to what we've seen with things like metadata sets. It allows us to gather a bunch of elements, configure them, and we can reuse them across our other forms. So this is for more rapid form creation if we have forms that have these common elements. So go ahead and click Add here at the top right. Okay. All right, and we're going to go ahead and click on where it says Untitled Element Set and type End of Form Set. And right underneath this for the short description, we're going to type use this set on the last page of a survey or feedback form. Okay, so this is for any survey or feedback form we can use. This will be for the last page, and we can just go ahead and tag it on there. Okay, so this would be, if you can think about it in terms of having actual paper forms, if we just had copies of the last page that we could staple onto the back of every form, it'll just make our lives a little bit easier. Okay, and doing it digitally will make it even faster than that, of course. All right, so let's go ahead and add some of our fields here. Okay, from here, go ahead and click on the Add button and choose the Select from List element and bring it into our form. Okay, and this will just get some feedback about the survey itself. All right, so for the label, we can do this survey was colon. Okay, don't type colon, I just put a colon there. All right, and then for our options, we can do too long. We can do a little long, except spell little correctly. We can do just right. And we can do could have been longer. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and lowercase this L for consistency's sake. Okay, all right, and then I can go ahead and click Save. Okay, and this will save our element set as it is right now, but of course we're not done here. So let's click on the Add button again. Go ahead and drag a text field underneath our Select From list here. All right, for the label, we're going to go ahead and type in, again, another question. So is there anything else you would like to let us know about? So again, this is an opportunity for them to give us more feedback. We can go ahead and change this to multiple lines where it says the text field has. All right, and that's pretty good to go for the end of form set for now. Okay, so let's go ahead and click Save again. All right, and this saves our new element set. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and import a form that already has some existing fields. We're going to update it, and then we're going to tag on our new element set. Okay, so if your menu is not already open, go ahead and open the menu. And we're going to click on the site selector in the site administration panel. Click on My Sites, and go to the Livingston loop. Okay. All right, open up the content section and go to Forms. Again, we're making an internal form now, where we're going to go ahead and just import one and edit it. That will allow us to get feedback from our employees as well. Okay. So this time, instead of clicking Add, go ahead and click on Options and Export Import. Okay. Click on Import and select File. All right, and go ahead and navigate to your exercises folder. Again, it will be in C Liferay or User Home Liferay, LRU-REL Content Management. All right. And go ahead and find the 09 gathering feedback forms. Okay, so go ahead and open that up. Choose the employee feedback form.lar. Okay, open it up. And go ahead and click Continue and Import. All right, so now we have that. You should see Successful here. We can go ahead and click on X to close the pop-up. Okay, this will give us our employee feedback form for the Livingston loop. We can go ahead and click on our new form. Okay, and once it's loaded, we can go ahead and scroll down and click on the How Satisfied Are You with the Following field here. Okay, now this is a new grid field. Okay, so we can see we have some rows, we have some columns, and we're able to add anything we'd like here. All right. So for the last option under rows, so I'll scroll down, it's right above the column section here. I can add a new row, and I can type something like amount of work time. Okay, and that will show up in my grid. Okay, and I can go ahead and click Save Form. All right, so let's go ahead and click on the Options menu at the top right here. Okay, we see some options. We can go ahead and click on Add New Page. All right. Okay, and for the untitled page 3 of 3 here, go ahead and just change this to page 3, nice and simple, and then type for the description, survey experience. Okay, as you can imagine, what we can do here now is we can go ahead and add the element sets. Okay, so click on Add, Element Sets. All right, now in this version of Liferay, again, this is a beta build of the product. The global sets aren't necessarily showing up in here, but by release, that's why we would do element sets in the global. And you could go ahead and just take the entire element set that we created earlier and drag it into our third page and hit publish. Okay. So again, the idea is it allows us to very quickly generate new forms using those element sets, or we can do it manually as well. Whatever works for you. There may be some forms that are different enough that you may not have some common elements that you want to have in a set. But in the case that there is some commonality, like we have here, placing an element set either in global or in the site you're working on can allow you to be very quick with your forms. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and recap what we discussed here. All right, so we have the forms asset that allows us to very quickly and easily build these forms to gather feedback from our users. Okay. We have a number of field options that we can set up either in the form itself or through an element set. Okay. And the element sets allow us to more quickly generate our forms by just simply plugging those in once we have a form going. Okay. You can add a form to the page using a widget, which we'll look at in the next video. Okay. And then we could go ahead and take advantage of some of those advanced form features as well, allowing us to provide some conditionals as well as adding success pages at the end of our forms as well. So this is a really great tool to gather feedback from users on the platform. And what we're going to do in the next video is, like I said, we're going to look at what it looks like to gather some analytics. We're going to place it on the page and just do a quick example of walking through the feedback. Okay, so stick around for the next video and we will look at how to gather some of that information once the form has been completed.